The one benchmark I did want to give you in solo piano, let's go back here because I said 10. I'm missing one. My goodness, I can't count, but I can play jazz piano.
Now, if you don't know where you are, how can you get to where you want to go? I'll say that again. If you don't know where you are on the map, how can you plan a route to get to the spot that you want to go to? You simply cannot. It's impossible. And that's why in this particular podcast lesson, I'm going to be giving you 10 benchmark assessments that will allow you to figure out exactly where you're at on the map. But I'm not going to tell you how to get to your destination. That's going to come in my series of planning workshops to help you plan for 2024 that I'm going to be live streaming on YouTube. So definitely go ahead and subscribe to this channel in order to get access to those free planning sessions. But this particular podcast lesson will give you the 10 benchmarks assessments that you need to know. And when you go through them, you'll find out exactly where you are. My name is Brendan Lowe, creator and founder of Jazz Piano School. We have a huge holiday promotion going on right now that's going to extend through New Year's on all of our courses, lifetime access, and my brand new accelerator program that's starting in January. Go to jazzpianoschool.com/holiday to check out all of the holiday discount offers that are available right now. And with that being said, on to the 10 benchmark assessments. Here we go.
All right, here we go. The 10 benchmark assessments that you need to know in order to prepare yourself for 2024. Assess yourself and prepare yourself. These are going to be broken down into 3 categories, 3 goals that the average jazz pianist aspires to accomplish, from easiest to hardest. Goal number 1 is how to play in a band, right? They want to be able to play in a band or accompany a vocalist or instrumentalist. Goal number 2, solo piano. Goal number 3, improvisation. Improvisation is the hardest. It requires the most technique, the most knowledge, and the most practice. Here we go. Goal number 1, how to play in a band, how to accompany a vocalist, instrumentalist, all that good jazz. Benchmark number 1, utilizing your rootless voicings down in the lower end of the piano. Okay? So what the benchmark test here is going to be is that you want to be able to comp with your rootless voicings in the low end of the piano. I call this zone 1. Through any tune. Really at any speed. So all the things you are. Right? Doesn't matter. If I were a bell. Right? Doesn't matter. And you could practice with your 2-5-1s as well, but you should be able to open up to any tune, comp in zone 1, which is right hand rootless voicings, left hand bass notes, really with ease. So if you can't do that, then the rest of the zones, by my standards, my philosophies, are off limits for you, okay? This is going to be the first one that you want to tackle because it's going to lead you up the piano in the different zones that I teach to progress as far as goal number 1 goes, how to play in a band, how to accompany a vocalist. Now, zone number 2 is going to be your next benchmark test. Zone number 2 is going to be the addition of 1 and 7, just one note in our left hand. So instead of a 2-5-1 being this to this, right, just single note bass notes, we're going to have 1 and 7 now, going to 1 and 3 or 1 and 10. Usually I would use 1 and 3, going to 1 and 7. Okay, that's the next benchmark. So again, you should be able to comp through any tune using this particular strategy isolated by itself. All right, here's Have You Met Miss Jones? I'm not using anything else. I'm not using any fancy voicings. I'm just using all basic standard rootless voicings with rhythms and comping through the tune. That's essentially your next benchmark, to be able to open up to any tune and comp through it utilizing rootless voicings. Now for ballads, this doesn't change either. If I were to play My Romance, which I'll use later, again, we're still going to use variations of this. That's how I'm comping. Right hand rootless voicings, left hand now has the addition of one note. 1 and 3, or 1 and 7, or 1 and 10, essentially, if you want to break your third into a 10th for a more lush sound, okay? Zone number 3, benchmark number 3, is going to be your drop 2s in the mid to high register range of the piano. Now, everyone wants to work on the drop 2s. I get it. They're very popular. They're that shiny gem because Bill Evans used these to the extreme beautifully. But they are one of the most difficult things to learn, so I never recommend that my students start with those. In my live programs, I always work through the zones in a systematic teaching way. But your next benchmark for zone 3, if you can do zone 1 and you can do zone 2, is going to be zone 3. This is going to be able to comp through a tune using just drop 2s. So I'm going to take my rootless voicings, just drop 2s of your basic standard rootless voicings. That's it. If you can't do things simple, y'all, right, then you're not going to be able to do them advanced. So that's why we're just using basic rootless voicing. So I'm going to use my basic rootless voicing for my F major 7 here. For Have You Met Miss Jones, this is the F major 7. I'm going to drop my second note from the top. And then I'm going to continue to comp through Have You Met Miss Jones with drop 2s, just like this. Right, so if I add some rhythm now. I can comp through the whole tune with no troubles, right? Going through the bridge. And flawlessly, easy. That's your benchmark number 3. Okay? Excuse me. Wait, yes, 3. On to benchmark number 4. That's going to be drop 2s. Now, benchmark number 4 for goal number 1. Remember, we're in category of goal number 1. These are the 4 benchmarks within goal number 1, how to play in a band. If your goal is to play in a band or accompany a vocalist or instrumentalist, these are the benchmarks you want to focus on to really channel your learning and prepare you for what you're going to have to learn in 2024 to make extreme amounts of progress, okay? Benchmark number 4 is going to be octaves in your right hand. Now your left hand has rootless voicings. This is a great high-end texture. This is how I use the high end of the piano. This is how you should use the high end of the piano. I'm going to use octaves on chord tones for the most part. I'm going to move them up diatonically up and down the chord scale. My left hand will have rootless voicings. Here we go. Have You Met Miss Jones again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So essentially, I'm using all octaves, and my left hand's playing rootless voicings. That's zone number 4. 4 different benchmarks for goal number 1. If your goal is to play in a band or accompany a vocalist, these are the 4 assessment tests you want to test yourself on in order to see where you're at. This will also tell you what you need to learn. I'm not going to tell you what you need to learn or practice in this particular podcast episode. I'm going to be doing a series of live streams come December on planning for 2024, which are always extremely popular. I highly recommend you check them out. But these are the benchmarks you want to do before I do those live streams, because I'll teach you what to play depending upon what benchmark you are on. Let's move to goal number 2, solo piano. I'm just going to be going over the ballad, and that's all I'm going to do. There's 3 different solo piano styles that I teach systematically: the ballad, slow swing, and medium and up tempos. The ballad, slow swing, medium, all the way to as fast as you can possibly play. 3 different styles, 3 different approaches to solo piano. We're going to be going over the ballad today, okay? So the ballad, the first step, I'm going to be using the tune My Romance as a example. The first step is going to be able to put your shells underneath the melody. So when the melody is aligned with a chord, this is your first benchmark. When there is no melody, like on the second chord, it's the C minor, I'm just going to play shells alone. So essentially, when the melody aligns with a chord in the lead sheet, I'm going to place the shells of my chord underneath the melody. Now, the shells are the 3rd and 7th of the chord. This is a D minor 7 chord here that I'm playing. The 3rd and the 7 here, I'm placing those under my melody, which is the note F, and I'm harmonizing underneath the melody to create a 3-note harmonization of that melody note. Check it out again. Melody, melody, harmonization, shells, melody. There is no melody on the C minor on beat 3, so I'm just going to play that alone, just the shells. Melody, melody, harmonization, melody, harmonization, 7-3, melody, melody, harmonization, shells, melody, bass note. Shells and bass note, there is no melody, 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 shells and melody. That's your first benchmark. You should be able to flip open to any ballad, play the melody with shells below the melody, single note left-hand bass notes. Remember, this C3 here is your breaking point for playing bass notes. You never want to play bass notes above this point. Always keep your bass notes in your left hand below C3. You should be able to open to any ballad and play shells underneath your melody in a simple way. And if you can't do that, then honestly, that's the first thing you should be working at in solo piano. The very, very first thing. That's it. Don't worry, the slow swing and medium swing will come later. Okay, there are different approaches, but this is going to be really your first priority. Step number 2, there's only 2 benchmarks in this particular goal. If you have the goal of playing solo piano, I'm only giving you 2 benchmarks. The second benchmark, if you can do that, is to add the 5th of the chord to your voicing. So instead of just shells in my right hand, I'm going to now create a 4-note harmonization, and I'm going to add the 5th in my right hand. I'm going to create a much thicker harmonization by doing this. So now it sounds like this. Melody, melody, harmonization. Now when there is no melody, instead of just the shells here like over the C minor 7, I'm going to now add the 5th to this. Okay? Then I'm going to keep going. You see how much I've thickened this arrangement up just by adding 1 note? No melody here. 3, 5, 7. Again, no melody here, 3, 5, 7. Now, if you can play ballads this way, honestly, you are like 95% of the way there playing solo piano. And I've only showed you 2 of the most simple, achievable steps in solo piano that you've probably ever seen in your entire life, right? Everyone's trying to teach you. You know, all this stuff, you don't need that. You don't need that, right? And this is one of the reasons that students start to get so off track. They literally turn the compass like due 50 degrees west and start sailing for like days, weeks, months, and then they've never reached their destination because they're so far off track, right? Just focus on the simple things that are going to achieve the results that you want based on these benchmarks, okay? 2 benchmarks, shells, and then your next benchmark, adding the 5th. Okay, so just 2. So we have 6. I've gone over 6 benchmarks now. 4 for goal number 1. If your goal is comping or playing in a band or accompanying an instrumentalist or vocalist, focus on that. 4 of those benchmarks. If your goal is solo piano, focus on those 2 benchmarks, right? Guaranteed a lot of you, I see this all the time with my students. Oh, I can do that. I can do that. Can you though? Can you? I challenge you to open up to any ballad, put the metronome on, play with the metronome on, and play through that ballad flawlessly at that metronome, keeping time and applying the exact strategy that I've just given you to any ballad. I challenge you. Now, if you can do that, I'll take your word for it. But most of the time, students are drastically overestimating their abilities to be able to pull these things off. And that's another reason that students tend to not see as much progress as they want to, because they're drastically overestimating what they can and cannot do. In their mind, it's set, oh yeah, I can do this. And then they go and try and do it, and it's not there. It's not as good as it needs to be. Goal number 3, improvisation. Here we go. 3 benchmarks for improvisation to finish us off to make our 10 benchmarks. The first benchmark for improvisation is you should be able to open up to any tune in the real book, any chart, and be able to improvise with all the chord tones in that particular chart. I'll take Have You Met Miss Jones again. You don't need your left hand for any of this. Your left hand and right hand are independent of each other. They're 2 separate skill sets. They're 2 separate methodologies and approaches that I teach. If I teach your left hand strategies to you and then your right hand strategies, then we would put them together, right? Just having your left hand and right hand go at it at the same time, if you're a beginner, even an intermediate player, without knowing what your left hand is supposed to be doing, it's a equation for disaster, okay? Here we go. Chord tones, Have You Met Miss Jones. I'm just going to solo with my chord tones through Have You Met Miss Jones. Your chord tones are the 4 notes in every single chord. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I've gone as far as I need to. Essentially, I used all chord tones. I didn't make a single mistake, okay, not to toot my own horn, right? But this is your benchmark. I can open up to any tune, and I can create a solo that sounds decent. It sounds pretty decent, right? And all I'm using is chord tones. And again, simplicity, testing your abilities with simple steps is the road to success. Okay, remember that. That is very, very important. Very important. The next step is to be able to connect our chord tones with what I call the glue notes, because in a scale that corresponds to a chord, improv scales, modes, so on and so forth, the scale is made up of your chord tones already. So you already have 4, okay, of the 7 notes that you need. All we're missing is just 3 extra notes. So now we want to be able to connect our chord tones to add fluidity and scalar motion. Otherwise, it's going to sound all like skips. Improvisation is made up of skips and steps. We need a way to connect our lines so that they can sound fluid and smooth, and that's where scalar motion comes in with the use of steps. So now I'm going to add the rest of my notes in my chord scale. I am in the key of F. Okay, I'm not going to go too deep into harmony and theory here, but I'm going to be adding G, B flat, and D. Those are the 3 notes from the F major scale, and they're going to allow me to connect my 4 chord tones together. So technically, you should be able to use your chord scales and improvise diatonically while still landing on chord tones on the downbeat of 1 for every measure through the tune. Okay, I'll do this slowly so you can see this in action. When I get to some of my chords that are outside the key of F, I'm going to be adjusting my chord scale. So I'm going to play a Mixolydian scale here. I'm not going to get into that, but again, you should be able to do this as well. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 5, 1, 1, 1, 3, 3, 5, 1. 1, 5, 3, 7, 3, 3, 3, 3. Okay? So I was calling out the chord tones I was landing on the downbeat of 1 on every single chord. Now, all the connection that you heard in the scalar motion moving up and down was all steps. I didn't use any skips. I think I used skips when I was resolving into the chord tone. So I might have gone F. Let me see a good example. So like when I got to the G, from the D7, right here, my 4 chord tones from the D7, when I was leading into my G minor, I went something like that, right? So I used essentially a hybrid of a bebop approach to get me into the chord tone, but it was still within the scale. So you should be able to open up, again, benchmark number 2, you should be able to open up to any jazz standard, no matter how fast, how slow it is, and be able to improvise using the chord scales, okay, with no fancy stuff, no altered scale, no whole tone scale, no blues scale, no half whole scale, no diminished scale, no reharms, no bebop approach notes, nothing. Just a pure essence of improv, the purest essence of improv, right? Chord tones, scalar motion, moving up and down. That's it, landing on a chord tone every time you hit beat 1 of the new chord. Okay, and the final benchmark number 10, is going to be creating a solo with the use of bebop approaches, any bebop approaches, with the first 2 steps that I just outlined. So now what I'm going to do is create a solo with the use of bebop approaches. Now, bebop approaches allow us to add tension to our improv. Right now, everything I'm playing is diatonic, meaning it's all within one key. It's all within the key. There's no tension and release. So bebop approach notes give us tension and then release into a chord tone. So my solo might go... right? So you can kind of start to hear like I'm moving out and then in, out and in. So I'm going to create a solo now. I'm going to show you what it's going to sound like, and I'm going to add my bebop approaches now, okay? It's going to sound significantly more like a bebop solo in this case. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So now it actually starts to sound like bebop. I was using very simple bebop approaches, and again, I was using steps 1 and 2, chord tones and scalar motions. Again, benchmark number 3, be able to open up to any tune or just a simple progression. Like a progression is a step into tunes. Like if you can do this over progressions, then guess what? Tunes are just random combinations of progressions. That's all they are, okay, with different melodies. If you can do this over progressions, then you can do it over tunes, but essentially your benchmark is to really be able to open up to any tune and do what I just did with ease, without anxiety, without hesitation, and kind of really understand how you can put a solo together. No left hand. Your right hand improv is all I'm talking about right now, okay? Eventually we get to improv strategies in our left hand. But again, just to recap the 10 strategies before I let you go. Goal number 1, how to accompany a band, accompany a vocalist. Right hand rootless voicings, left hand bass notes. Have you met Miss Jones? No reharms, no passing chords, nothing. Simple reharms, just rhythms. Goal number 2, adding 1 note to our left hand to create 1 and 7, 1 and 3, or 1 and 10 in our left hand now. I'm adding 1 note. I'm adding 1 note. My right hand is still playing rootless voicings. My left hand is adding 1 note. It's going to be the 7, the 3rd, or the 10. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2. I'll slow it down a little bit. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I had a couple of mistakes in there. That was my fault. I didn't use a rootless voicing on the D7, and actually that should have been a D minor 7, actually, so that's my bad in general. But for the most part, pretty flawless, okay? I am human. Goal number 3, drop 2s. Again, one of the most advanced things you can do, be able to open up to any tune, use your drop 2s, voice lead, comp through, just using drop 2s. 1, 2, 3, 4. all drop twos with your right hand rootless voicings. The voicing you're using is your rootless voicing in your right hand. You're using in a drop two arrangement of your rootless voicing. Benchmark number 4, octaves, left hand and right hand rootless voicings. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So on and so forth. Okay, 4 benchmarks. Goal number 2, solo piano. Melody with shells underneath, left hand bass notes. When there is no melody, shells with bass notes by itself. Shells and melody. Shells without any melody. Bass note. Bass note, shells, melody. When there is no melody, shells and bass note by itself. Any tune. Benchmark. Next benchmark for solo piano. Adding the 5 to create a 4-note harmonization. When there is no melody, 5, 3, and 7. Okay, 2 benchmarks for solo piano. That's it, guys. We're up to 6 benchmarks. Is that right? Yes. Okay. Oh, wait. Did I skip one? I think I skipped one. Let me see. 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, I did skip one. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. So the one benchmark I did want to give you in solo piano, let's go back here because I said 10. I'm missing one. My goodness. I can't count, but I can play jazz piano. The next benchmark here is going to be the addition of your left hand when it's going to be using 1 and 10 or 1 and 7 or single note bass note alone. So 1 and 10, 1 and 7 or single note bass note alone. Okay, so 3 solo piano benchmarks. I'm so sorry. That's my fault. Again, I am human. Now, we're going to take our 4-note harmonization. When we have the room to add in a 10th, I'm going to add in the 10th. If the 10th is, kind of getting too high, or I do have room to, or it's kind of overtaking my right hand, I will play a 7th. Or if my melody gets too low, I'm only going to play a single note bass note. So the melody, where the melody is, dictates whether I'm using single note bass note, 1 and 7, 1 and 10. Here we go. 10. Okay, 10. Again, here, my 10 is this note here, right, with my harmonization. So I'm not going to play a 10 there. I'm just going to play a single note bass note. 10 here, because I can fit it in. 10 here. 1 and 7 here, because again, a 10 would be on my right hand harmonization. See that? Okay, single note bass note because I'm getting too low. The melody's getting too low here, so I'm just going to use single note bass notes. Otherwise, it's going to be muddy. Single note bass note. Single note bass note. Single note bass note still. It's back to my 10th. 1 and 7. Sorry. And then single note bass note. So where the melody is and what my right hand is playing is dictating. It's literally telling my left hand what to do. If I have space to play the 10th and it's not overcumbering like my right hand, it's not overtaking my right hand, I'm going to play the 10th. If the 10th, again, if I'm kind of more up in this middle range register, I'm going to play 1 and 7. Again, I wouldn't play 1 and 10 here because it's going to be landing on the arrangement that we are working on systematically. And then as the melody gets too low, then I'm only going to use single note bass notes for especially this part. I don't need more than that. My right hand's doing all the work. Okay? Phew, I was like, wait, that is not 10 steps. Okay, here we go. 8, 9, and 10 for improvisation, right? Chord tones. Soloing with chord tones. Have you met Miss Jones? 1, 2, 3, 4. Very easy. Benchmark number 2 for your improvisation goal, connecting your chord tones with scalar motion. A little bit slower. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 5, 1, 3, 3, 1. That was 1 and then 3. I had a brain meltdown there. Connecting, and then finally bebop approaches. Now I'm using bebop approaches to add to my solo. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I was adding an exaggerated amount of bebop approaches so you could really hear the ins and outs, like when I went outside of the key, then back in, outside of the key, then back in, okay? Very exaggerated with the use of lots of bebop approaches. That's your final benchmark, all right? Again, the purpose of this particular podcast for all the students out there watching is to be able to assess your ability in the 3 most coveted, most desired goals that I've seen over my past 25 years of teaching by students. No matter what goal you have, no matter who I've taught, every single student comes to me and they say one of 3 things. I want to learn how to accompany someone or play in a band. I want to know how to play solo piano, or I want to learn how to improvise. Now, within each one of those goals, you have different skill sets, you have different abilities, you have different things you need to work on. So when you understand what your goal and your approach is, when you understand what your target is, what your focus is, then you can know the exact practice exercises, the exact things you need to do on a daily basis to go forward in the direction that you need to go in, instead of drifting off and learning McCoy licks or Herbie lines or this cool altered voicing or a double diminished voicing, right? That stuff is very miscellaneous to your goal, right? It's a very miscellaneous and probably 1% of your journey to get you to the place that you want to be. The fundamentals and the bulk of learning that's going to get you to the place that you want to be, goal 1, 2, or 3, and be able to accomplish that and execute that in a professional way is not that stuff. It's these fundamental benchmarks that when you use them and assess where your abilities are going to tell you, oh, okay, this is what I need to learn. This is what I need to work on. Now, I haven't given you that yet. I haven't given you what you need to work on. I've just told you about the benchmarks that are going to allow you to decide and see where you're at. And then I'm going to give you the steps to tell you what you need to learn all throughout December to make your progress come to you much faster, because when you focus in on these exercises, right, you're going to be going directly towards your target. You're not going to be going over here. You're not going to be going over here, right, and trying to learn something that's completely out of your way, to get you to your goal. You just don't know. I don't blame you. You don't know what you don't know. And a lot of times the internet has exacerbated this problem. And the internet, when you go on, you're seeing all these things that look like the thing you should be learning, and they're intriguing for sure, but it's like they're sirens, right? They're sirens on the ocean that are calling you and saying, come learn me, right? This is cool. This is going to be helpful. When in actuality, it's like the teeniest little part of the puzzle that doesn't get you 80% of the way there, right? And then you think about all these 1% that you're moving around and trying to learn. And eventually you've kind of zigzagged back and forth, pretty much left and right, and never even gone forward for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, a month, 3 months. Can you imagine going forward in a straight line for 3 months? 90 days? Which is what my live accelerator program is, by the way, because I give you the exact steps you need in the exact moment to let you go straight forward to your goal for 90 days straight. Can you imagine that? Because what I see students doing is going on the internet, looking at a YouTube video, buying a book, buying a DVD, buying a course that they think is in the right moment for them, and zigzagging back and forth. They go left, then they go right. They go left, and they go right. And by the time they know it, they spent 90 days just zigzagging back and forth, going left and right, and they never made any true progress forward. Use these benchmarks, everyone, to decide and discern where you're at in your playing, and then I'm going to give you the next steps. I'm going to give you what you should practice and help you plan for 2024 through this upcoming month of December. My name is Brendan Lowe. Don't forget to check out Jazz Piano School. Again, we have a lot of holiday promotions going on for all the courses, all the education, the membership. My live accelerator program is open for enrollment. There are lots of spots left. I would say, I think 17 out of 20 people, maybe less at the time that you're watching this, but I'm not sure. That is a customized lesson program with me and my staff that helps teach you and guide you through all the education. So with that being said, have a fantastic day and happy practicing. All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Don't forget to go to jazzpianoschool.com to check out all of our free, amazing education, all of the free podcast blogs. We do have a membership if you're looking to take a next step forward with us, get access to over 1,000 different jazz piano videos, playbooks, mini courses, a main course curriculum, success path, and so much more. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at support@jazzpianoschool.com. I hope you have a wonderful day, and as always, happy practicing.